Welcome to 12 days of cookies. It's that time of year that we're doing a lot of extra cooking and baking, preparing for the holidays, and we like to give a lot of cookies and candies as gifts to our friends and neighbors. So I hope that you'll follow along. The first recipe that we're going to do, our traditional chocolate chip cookie recipe, but we're putting M&Ms in instead of chocolate chips. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, the ingredients that we'll need are 3½ to 4 cups of flour, 1 1/3 cup of brown sugar, 2/3 cup of granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 cup of butter, and it's softened. And then we need about 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And the star here are the M&Ms. Instead of the chocolate chips, we're using M&Ms. So we're going to use about the equivalent of a 12-ounce bag. So that would be like 1½ cups. So we'll go ahead and get started here. First thing we'll do is cream the butter. Okay, then we'll add the sugars. Almost forgot our eggs. We also need 2 eggs. So we'll cream the butter and sugar. Now I'll add the egg and vanilla, teaspoon-ish. Measure with our heart. Okay, we'll add our salt and soda to the flour. Give that a little mix. And then we'll add it to... Okay, then I'll add the M&Ms and just kind of give it a quick stir. My trusty old cookie sheets. I don't even know where I got them originally, but I sure like them. Okay, then I'm gonna do scoops, and then I'll flatten them just a little bit. I have my oven preheated to 350. Okay, they're ready to pop in the oven. I said 350, it's actually 375. For about 11 or 12 minutes. I'll come back when they're done. We just changed the chocolate chips to festive M&Ms, and now it looks like a beautiful Christmas cookie. Another one of the cookies that we like to give away as a gift are white chocolate macadamia nut. That actually uses the very same dough recipe as the chocolate chips and the M&M ones that we just did. So we're going to use the same bowl and everything and make another batch. And this time we're going to add white chocolate chips and macadamia nuts. So let's get started. Okay, we need 3½ to 4 cups of flour, 1 1/3 cup of brown sugar, 2/3 cup of granulated sugar, and we need 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 2 eggs, 1 cup of butter, 11 ounces of white chocolate chips, and about, this is 3/4 cup, 3/4 cup to 1 cup of chopped macadamia nuts, and then about a teaspoon of vanilla. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, to start with, we will cream our butter and sugar. I promise this is the last recipe that we're using the same dough. Okay, we'll cream that. Okay, now we'll add our 2 eggs. Now we'll add our vanilla, our salt and baking soda to the flour. Give that a little stir. And then we'll pour that into the butter mixture. Okay, now I'm going to add the macadamia nuts and the white chocolate. And give that just a little stir. Now it's ready to scoop. Oh. I have the oven preheated to 375. We love the combination of the white chocolate and the nuts. It's just delicious. It's probably one of my favorite cookies. So I'll go ahead and pop those in the oven for about 11 or 12 minutes. I'll be right back. The white chocolate macadamia nuts are finished and they look delicious. They're going to be a great addition to our Christmas goodies, and I will go ahead and put them in the freezer in an airtight container, and in a couple weeks we'll get them out and pass them out to our friends and family. Try this recipe. Now we'll move on to cookie number 3. Our next cookie is hot cocoa cookie, and chocolate and marshmallow go great together. So we're going to put them together in a cookie. So follow along. Okay, there are a lot of ingredients, but most of the ingredients you probably already have on hand. So we'll go ahead and get started here with 1 cup of granulated sugar, 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of milk chocolate chips, and 2 eggs, 1 cup of softened butter, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 cup of brown sugar, and 3/4 of a cup of cocoa, unsweetened cocoa, and 18 marshmallows that have been cut in half this way, and 36 Hershey Kisses, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. So we'll go ahead and start by creaming the butter and the sugars together. Just want to make sure they're completely incorporated. Then our egg and our 2 teaspoons of vanilla, or so. We'll mix that together. Okay, then next we will put our dry ingredients together. We'll put the marshmallows and the Hershey Kisses aside. We won't need those quite yet. So we'll put our flour, our salt, and baking soda together. Give that a little mix. Then we'll add our cocoa. Okay, that's pretty well mixed. Now I'll slowly add it to the mixer as it's going. That's all mixed together. Now I'm going to add the milk chocolate chips and give that a stir. It's a very thick dough. Okay, I believe that's done. Okay, I have the oven preheated to 350, and I'm going to scoop up little balls here. This is like a 1.5 tablespoon scoop. And give them about 2 inches in between. Okay, I'll go ahead and put these in the freezer, and then when they come out, we'll pop them in the oven. So now I'm going to go ahead and pop them in the oven, and I'm going to bake them for about 6 or 7 minutes. Then we'll top them with a marshmallow and put them back in. So we'll come right back. Okay, they have been in for about 6 minutes, and I'm going to flatten them a little bit, and then I'll put the marshmallow on, and they'll go back in for about 3 to 5 minutes until the marshmallow puffs up a little bit, and you can tell that they're done around the edges here. All total, they'll be in about 10 or 12 minutes. Okay, back in the oven for 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, they've come out of the oven, and as you can see, the marshmallow has puffed up a little bit. They have sat for about 3 minutes. You don't want to put the chocolate on immediately when it comes out, or it will just melt. And you can also see that the sides have set up. They're still pretty soft, but they have set up. They're not gooey. So now I'll go ahead and put the Hershey Kisses on. Just kind of push down a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to let them completely cool on the cookie sheet before I transfer them to a wire rack. So we'll come back when they're all done. The hot cocoa cookies are finished. Don't they look delicious? And I will have to keep them in an airtight container out in the garage or the refrigerator. They unfortunately do not keep well in the freezer. So they will be good for a couple weeks though, and that's all the longer I need them to be. So I will go ahead and seal them up and put them in the fridge. next Christmas cookie is a ginger snap. And nothing says Christmas or the holidays like ginger snaps or gingerbread cookies. We'll go ahead and put together this easy recipe. Okay, the ingredients that we'll need are 2 1/4 cup of flour, 2 tablespoons of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. It does call for 1/4 teaspoon of cardamom, but I didn't have it, and I'm gonna leave it out. And then we have 2 teaspoons of ground ginger, then 1 egg, and 1 1/2 sticks of butter, 1 cup of granulated sugar, 1/3 cup of molasses, and a teaspoon of vanilla. And then after we roll them in balls, we will need 1/4 cup of sugar and another teaspoon of ginger. We'll go ahead and get started by blending our spices in with the flour mixture. I have the oven preheated to 350. I'll set that aside, and then we're going to add our sugar to our mixer. And all the cookies that I'm doing, I'm using the stand mixer. Well, most of them I'm using the stand mixer, but you can use another mixer, a hand mixer, that's fine. It's just more convenient for me. I'm gonna cream this, the butter and sugar, for about 3 to 5 minutes. I'm gonna mix it till it's light and fluffy. Now we'll add our egg and our molasses. And I actually sprayed the container. Okay, now I'll mix that together. I do not like the smell of molasses. I love ginger snaps or gingerbread, but not molasses. Goes to show that if you add enough ingredients, it covers up that taste or smell. Now I'll go ahead and add the dry ingredients here, and we'll stir just until it's combined. Now add the vanilla, and I'm going to scoop balls into the sugar and then place them on the cookie sheet about 2 to 3 inches apart. These will spread, so don't want them too close. Okay, they're ready to go into the oven, and they'll bake for about 10 minutes. You'll know that they're done when you can smell them. They'll have a wonderful fragrance, and they'll also be set around the edges. So we'll go ahead and pop them in the oven. Okay, the first batch has come out of the oven, and as you can see, they're nicely set around the edges, and they'll flatten some as they cool, but we'll leave them cool completely on the baking sheet. They will fall apart if we try to put them on the cooling rack. So we'll come back when they're completely cool. These ginger snaps are all done, and they are delicious. I may have tried one. You're gonna wanna add this to your Christmas baking. They keep very well. You can keep them on the counter in an airtight container for about a week, and then up to about 3 months in the freezer. So this is a keeper for sure. Our next cookie is the M&Ms Mint Chocolate Cookie. It's a simple recipe. Let's get started. Okay, I have my oven set at 350, and we will need 2 cups of flour, 3/4 cup of granulated sugar, 3/4 cup of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 2 eggs, 3/4 cup of softened butter, and 2/3 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And I don't have any vanilla, but I do have vanilla powder, so I'll put that in its place. And the star here, M&Ms Mints. We need 36 of them unwrapped. So we'll go ahead and get started by creaming the butter and sugar. Okay, we'll mix that. that's all creamed together, I'll add our eggs and vanilla. Go ahead and mix that. Okay, now I'll add the salt and baking powder or baking soda to the flour, and I'll stir that in a little bit before I add the cocoa. Now I'll stir in the cocoa. Now I will slowly add it into our butter mixture. That's all mixed together. Now we'll scoop it onto our cookie sheet. We're just going to scoop it. We don't have to shape it or anything. About 2 inches apart. Okay, they're ready to go into the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes, just until the outside edge is set, but the center will still be a little soft. Okay, our cookies have come out of the oven, and then while they're still hot, I'm going to go ahead and place a mint on each one, kind of pushing down gently. We'll leave it set there for about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and kind of swirl it around, and that will be the frosting. Okay, we'll let that set for about 5 minutes, and then we'll swirl it around. Okay, as you can see, they're starting to melt, so we'll just kind of swirl it around, leaving a little bit of an edge there. These will keep on the counter in an airtight container for about 4 or 5 days. If you want to keep them longer than that, you can actually stick them in the freezer in an airtight container for a couple weeks. Okay, see how easy that was? They are so yummy too. So we'll go ahead and plate them up, and then we'll come back. Another delicious plate of cookies are done. The Andes Mint Chocolate Cookie. They're going to be a crowd pleaser for sure. Another of our favorite cookies are peanut butter blossoms. I've been making these cookies for many years, and they're one of our family favorites, but we also like to give them as gifts. So they're added to our cookie list. You're going to want this recipe. It's really good. Let's get started. Okay, the ingredients that we need are 1/2 cup of softened butter, 1/2 cup of peanut butter. You can use creamy or crunchy. We prefer creamy. 1 egg, 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 1 3/4 cup of flour, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking powder or baking soda, and 2 tablespoons of milk. And I'm out of vanilla, so I have vanilla powder, so I'll be using that right now. 1 teaspoon of that. And then we need 48 Hershey Kisses that have been unwrapped, and then some sanding sugar. And because they're going to be as Christmas gifts, I added some red sanding sugar in with some white. So we'll go ahead and get started. And actually this recipe is so simple. We just dump everything in except the sanding sugar and the Hershey Kisses. So let's get started. Go ahead and mix that up. The first thing we need to do is to form these into little balls, and then we will roll them in the sugar here. Okay, there's no chilling the dough or anything. We just pop it in the oven for 6 minutes, and we'll take them out and put a Hershey Kiss in, and then pop them back in for 6 more minutes. Okay, now I will place 1 Hershey Kiss on each one. Kind of push it down in a little bit. Back in for 6 more minutes. Peanut butter blossoms are done, but I think they look pretty festive. So On to the next cookie. Today we're going to be making peppermint snowball cookies. And this is just a cute little cookie that looks like a snowball, but it has a pleasant surprise inside with crushed peppermint. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, the ingredients that we need are 1 cup of butter. If you use salted butter, you won't add the 1/8 teaspoon of salt. So we're using salted, so we won't use any salt. And then we will also need 3/4 cup of powdered sugar or confectioner sugar, 2 1/4 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 teaspoon of peppermint extract. I don't have peppermint extract, but I have peppermint oil, and this is much more potent, so I'm only going to use a couple drops. Normally you would use 1 teaspoon of peppermint extract. 1/3 cup of the crushed peppermint candies. If you're using candy canes, it's about the equivalent of 3 to 4 regular sized candy canes. And then to roll the balls in, we also have an additional 1 1/4 cup of confectioner sugar or powdered sugar. So we'll set that aside for now. We'll go ahead and get started here. Okay, first we need to cream our butter and then add our sugar. Then we'll add our powdered sugar and we'll mix that well. Then I will add the vanilla, 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And then, like I said, just a drop or 2. Okay, I'll go ahead and mix that in. Now I will slowly add in the flour as it's beating. Okay, you see how nicely that came together. So now I'm going to add the peppermints, and then we'll give that a little stir. Okay, now I'm going to put a cover on this and put it in the refrigerator and let it cool for about 30 minutes, and then we'll form it into balls. Okay, the dough has chilled and I will form them into balls. I have like a 1 teaspoon scoop that I'm using, but you can make them bigger if you like. And then place them on the cookie sheet about 2 inches apart. These cookies are great to make ahead. They will freeze really well. You can leave them on the counter in a airtight container for up to about a week, and then frozen in an airtight container up to about 3 months. Okay, I'll go ahead and put those in the oven, and they'll bake for about 15 minutes. We want the bottoms to be lightly brown, but the top should be just barely brown. So we'll come back when they come out of the oven. Okay, the cookies have come out of the oven and they have been sitting for about 5 minutes. So what I'm going to do is to roll them in the powdered sugar, and then I'll put them on the cooling rack. And then once they're completely cool, I'll go ahead and roll them again. It won't stick. Right now you can kind of see already that it's melting, so it won't stick. We won't have the true snowball effect until it's rolled the second time. Okay, now we'll wait for the others to come out and wait for these to completely cool, and then round 2. The peppermint snowball cookies are ready for their second coating. Okay, let me clean up my mess here. Okay, the peppermint snowball cookies are done, and they're so cute. They kind of look like those little powdered donuts, so that's probably what the little kids will think they are. They will make a great addition. It's a great recipe. On to the next one. Our next cookie is a crackle cookie, and I've made several of those before, but I've never made this particular one. It's called the Grinch cookie. It's a green cookie and it's minty. So let's get started. Okay, the ingredients that we'll need are 1 white cake mix. We're just going to use the dry mix. 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 2 teaspoons of peppermint extract. I don't have peppermint extract, but I do have peppermint oil, so I will do about 3 drops. Some green food coloring. We need 1/2 cup softened butter, 2 large eggs. We will roll the balls in 1/4 cup confectioner sugar, powdered sugar, and 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. We'll mix that together and we'll roll the balls in there. And we also need candy hearts. If you don't find the hearts, you can just use cinnamon discs. These are called hearts, but some of them are more like little triangles. Okay, we'll start by, come here. We preheated our oven to 375. Put in our butter and our mix, and we'll mix that together, and then we'll add the eggs. Okay, it's not completely incorporated, but it's mixed enough. Okay, now I will mix that a little better. Okay, next I will add in the vanilla, 1 teaspoon, and a couple drops of peppermint oil. And then we'll add in about a teaspoon green food coloring. We'll see where we're at there with that. You can make it as light or dark as you want with the food coloring. Then we'll mix that together and see where we're at. I think we have about the right color. It's a very sticky dough. Our powdered sugar and cornstarch. This is what helps make the crackle. About a tablespoon ball. I'm going to go ahead and plop it in there. Coat it. And then form it into a ball. Okay, I'll clean my hands and then get these in the oven. Okay, aren't they so cute? So now we will quickly add the heart. Okay, they're super cute. I'll leave them sit on the cookie sheet for about 5 or 6 minutes, and then I'll place them on a cooling rack until they're completely cool. Our Grinch cookies are done, and they're going to look really pretty on our Christmas cookie platter. So, on to the next cookie. A must-have on our Christmas cookie plate are cutout cookies. And I have a recipe that I've been using for about 40 years. I had gotten it from a church cookbook, and the person that put the recipe in there is Linda Welts. She's someone from our community, and I have been sharing this recipe for years. Everyone that has it just really likes the flavor and the texture and everything. So I think you're going to want this recipe also. I actually make cutout cookies for different occasions throughout the year, and this is the recipe I use. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, the ingredients that we'll need are 1 1/3 cup granulated sugar, 1 1/3 cup of softened butter, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt. I only have 1/2 teaspoon of salt because my butter is salted, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 4 eggs, 4 cups of flour. The first thing we'll do is to cream the sugar and the butter. Okay, we'll put in our eggs and our vanilla, and we'll mix that well. Now we will mix the dry ingredients together. Okay, then I'll slowly add that in. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and wrap it in plastic and put it in the fridge. And then when it has chilled for a couple hours, we'll go ahead and cut out. Okay, the dough has chilled, and I cut it in half, and I'm going to return half of it to the fridge to continue to chill while I'm working with this. Just putting enough flour down to keep it from sticking, and then flour the rolling pin, and then we'll roll it out. You can roll them as thin as you like. I usually go between like 1/4 to 1/2 inch. Now I'll flour my cutters a little bit and then just start cutting them out. They need at least an inch, inch and a half between. They won't spread a whole lot, but you don't want to overcrowd them. You don't need anything fancy for cutouts. This one is an ornament, but you could even use just like a glass or something to cut out. I make more trees than anything. They're just so fun to decorate. Okay, I'll get those in the oven that has been preheated to 400 and bake them for about 10 minutes and then put them on a cooling rack. And when they're completely cool, we'll start decorating. The cookies are done. And as you can see, they have a nice light brown bottom, but they're still a little pale on top, and that's how we want them. And they've puffed up a little bit. Let them sit on the cookie sheet for about 5 minutes and then place them on the cooling rack to finish cooling. The recipe actually says to wait 24 hours before decorating, but I've never waited that long. You can freeze them at this stage. Just put layers of parchment between them and freeze them until you're ready to decorate. They keep wonderfully. So it's a really good cookie dough. Yeah, I usually wait maybe an hour or so before I decorate. Just making sure that they're completely cool. But you don't want to use a warm cookie sheet to put more on. I still have a couple more batches to go here. If it's too warm, then they'll spread and they won't look nice. So always be patient with that. Okay, the cutout cookies are all done and they've all cooled, and I'm putting them in a container, and I will frost them tomorrow. I don't have time to do it tonight, so it's exciting to have those all done. Our next recipe is melt in your mouth shortbread cookies. That buttery flavor and texture that just melts in your mouth. So this recipe has all of the above. So let's get started. Okay, first of all, we have the oven preheated to 350, and I've lined cookie sheets with parchment paper. We will need 1 cup of butter. We also need 1/4 teaspoon of salt, but if you're using salted butter, you can eliminate the salt. And that's what I have, salted butter. And 1 teaspoon vanilla extract, 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, 2/3 cup of powdered sugar. After we put them on the pan, then we'll flatten them, and I'll use more cornstarch just to keep my hands from getting sticky, and then we'll put some holiday sprinkles on. So we'll go ahead and get started here by creaming the butter and the powdered sugar. And our 2/3 cup of powdered sugar. Now I'm actually going to cream this until it's light and fluffy, and it will be about 5 minutes. Okay, I don't know if you can see, but it's very light and fluffy. And what we just did is we aerated it, and that gives it the nice fluffy texture. So we'll go ahead and add in the flour and the cornstarch and the vanilla now. Let's do the vanilla first. So about 1 teaspoon or so, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and I'll turn that on and mix slowly. Bring in our cookie sheet, and then we're going to use about a tablespoon, either just a regular tablespoon or a scoop, and I'm going to scoop out little balls here, and then we'll flatten them, leaving about 2 inches between. Now I'll just make a little not crisscross, but a little mark on here. Okay, now I'm gonna just put some sprinkles on. And they're ready for the oven, and they'll bake for about 12 to 15 minutes. And then you'll know that they're done when the tops look like they're set. You don't want to bake them too long. You don't want them to get hard and crispy. Okay, we'll put them in the oven. Okay, as you can see, the cookies are done, and I pulled this one apart. You can see the texture inside there. Melt in your mouth shortbread cookies are all done. If there are any left over, they will store easily in the freezer in an airtight container. So you're going to want this recipe. Delicious melt in your mouth shortbread cookies. Our next cookie are Meringue Kisses, and these are just delicious, light, airy cookies. There are no leavening agents in there, no flour, no baking powder, no baking soda. It has egg white, and that will be beaten, and that's where it will get its lift and airiness. So it's a light, fluffy cookie, and it has a surprise inside, a Hershey Kiss. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Okay, these are the ingredients that we'll need. 3 egg whites. We don't want any yolk in there, and they have come to room temperature. 1 cup of sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. And what cream of tartar does is it helps to stabilize egg whites. You often find it like an angel food cake or meringues. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 44 Hershey Kisses, a pinch of salt, and that's it. So, but the thing that takes the longest here will be whipping the egg whites. We have to whip them until they form a stiff peak. So that will be about 5 to 8 minutes. So I have the whisk on here. You can use a hand mixer, but you just keep in mind that you're going to have to whisk it for a long time. So we'll go ahead and start by putting our egg whites, and we'll beat them until they're foamy. And then we're going to sprinkle in our 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. Okay, you can see that the eggs are foamy. So now we'll sprinkle in the cream of tartar and a pinch of salt. And we will beat it until soft peaks form. Okay, we now have soft peaks. You can see how if we touch the batter, it forms a nice soft peak. So now we will stir in our sugar gradually, and then we'll continue beating until stiff peaks form. At this time, you would also, if you're using food coloring, you would go ahead and put the food coloring in. Let me see, where am I supposed to put the vanilla? I'll put the vanilla in now. It's been a while since I've made this. 1 teaspoon. Okay, this will take about 5 to 8 minutes. Okay, as you can see now, it does have very stiff peaks. It's kind of marshmallowy. Be gentle with the dough because you've put all that air into it, so you don't want to deflate it. Then we'll scoop it onto a cookie sheet. Our cookie sheet has been lightly greased, and we'll just do rounded spoonfuls, and then we'll take a kiss and plop it in the middle, and then cover up the kiss, kind of bringing it up to make a peak. Place them about 1.5 to 2 inches apart, and they'll bake in a preheated oven that has been set to 275, and they'll bake for about 30 to 35 minutes. Okay, into the oven for about 30 to 35 minutes. or until they're firm to touch. And then immediately I'll put them onto a wire rack to cool. Okay, the Meringue Kisses are done, and my husband said they taste incredible. So that's quite a compliment. In the past, I have put many M&Ms or chocolate chips inside, like I said. They're kind of fragile, so you need to be careful. They're not going to be good for putting in the freezer. So you'll want to use these, or make these close to time that you're going to use them. But we concluded that they kind of look like garlic, don't they? So, but it's a surprise inside. You're going to want to try that recipe. It's good. And our last cookie is the classic Snickerdoodle. Snickerdoodles are just a great soft cinnamon cookie that's good any time of the year. So it has to go on our Christmas cookie plate. So let's get started. Okay, the ingredients we need for Snickerdoodles are 1.5 cups of granulated sugar, 2 3/4 cups of flour, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1 cup of softened butter. I have salted butter, so we're not going to add any extra salt, but the recipe calls for 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar, and 2 eggs. And then for when we roll them into a ball or we bake them, we will roll them in 1/3 cup of sugar and 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. I'll mix that together and we'll roll them in there. That's where it gets its yummy cinnamon flavor. So we'll go ahead and get started by creaming the butter and sugar. Okay, I'll turn the mixer on and mix that up. Well, we had a technical problem here. For some reason, my camera just shut off. So we beat the butter and the sugar together, and then we mixed the cream of tartar, baking soda, and flour together, and then slowly added that and added a teaspoon of vanilla. And now we are getting ready to, well, we stirred together our 1/3 cup of sugar and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. And now we're getting ready to form balls, and we'll roll them in the sugar and place them on an ungreased cookie sheet, and we'll bake at 400 degrees for 8 to 10 minutes. Form them into little balls and then roll them in the cinnamon sugar. These will store well. Once they're cooled, you can put them in an airtight container and stick them in the freezer until you're ready to use them. Okay, ready for the oven. We'll bring them out when they're done. The Snickerdoodles are done, and they need to stay on the cookie sheet for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then you can take them off and put them on the cooling rack. But as you can see right now, they're still just way too soft to move. They'll just sink down through the cooling rack. So we'll come back in a few minutes. The Snickerdoodles are complete, and that means the 12 days of cookies is also complete, and I'm tired. But I want to ask you, what is your favorite cookie? Either Christmas cookie or any time of the year. My favorite is probably Snickerdoodle or white chocolate macadamia nut. My husband said that his is still the M&M cookies, and those Meringue Kisses are a close second, he said. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and come back again. Comment down below, what is your favorite cookie? We'll see you soon. Merry Christmas. Now it's ready to scoop. Oops. I should have put an apron on today. Oops. I keep forgetting about that. We're just going to scoop it. We don't have to shape it or anything. About 2 inches apart. back in. Whoops, that's hot. Let them sit on the rack or cool. Okay, you need some help here with a couple of these. It has egg white, and that will be beaten. And they'll bake for about 10 minutes. You'll know that they're done when you can smell them. They'll have a wonderful fragrance.